Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the Triple Play. This is your host Danielle, and today I am joined by another veteran of the show. I'm going to call you a veteran since you were here last semester. I am with Jake. Jake, do you want to reintroduce yourself to all the listeners?
Hey, what's up, guys? Jake Nichols. I'm a freshman sports journalism major here at the University of Tennessee, and I'm glad to be back. It's been a little bit.
It has been. It's been a few months, but it's nice to have you back. It's just us two on the show, so who knows what we're going to get into. This could be a really interesting show with a lot to cover. We never know. So let's go ahead and just start with Kentucky, or with Tennessee basketball. They played Kentucky last week. They traveled up to Lexington and lost to Kentucky. Really close game. It was only 80-70, a final there in Lexington. Tennessee losing to the Wildcats, but then they came back to Thompson-Boling Arena this weekend and played LSU on Saturday and picked up quite possibly one of their most impressive wins on the season, apart from the Kentucky win that we talked about last week from a couple weeks ago. But Tennessee did end up beating the Bayou Bengals 81-65. Kevin Punter was on the bench for this game wearing a boot, and news just came out this afternoon saying that Kevin Punter has gone through a stress fracture in his right foot. Like I said, he was wearing a boot during the game on Saturday. So that was really interesting to see him just on the bench because you're so used to him being out there and putting up major points. But speaking of putting up major points, it's nice to see new leadership coming about for the Vols. Robert Hubbs III had 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. But I think the one player that everybody is talking about, because nobody really expected this showing from him, is Armani Moore. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. This is easily one of his best performances on the season, and this is another great home win, like I said, for the Vols. They are 12-2 at Thompson-Boling Arena this season. So, this is a great win, like I said, and it's nice to see a lot of players stepping up on both ends of the ball.
It absolutely is. I think that one thing that many people didn't expect, especially considering Tennessee's size or against LSU, lack thereof, is the fact that they out-rebounded LSU 39-32 on the game, which, even I didn't cover the game, but from the student section, it was really impressive to see the scrappiness they showed against a talented LSU team. And, owing against, a freshman phenom like Ben Simmons, great game by the Vols.
Absolutely. And Simmons was he played 36 minutes, which you're going to expect to see from him in any game for the Tigers, but he only had 21 points.
Yeah.
And that was really surprising because this is a player that can put up a lot of points, especially in the paint.
Yeah, Tennessee stepped up its defense big time, and it showed.
I agree, and I think even going back to what I said with both sides of the ball, this was one of the best offensive performances I've seen. Yeah. Robert Hubbs he was feeling it. You could tell.
Yeah, and again, not to harp on this, but you really can't help to without Punter, who, his career high was 36 points against, South Carolina. Just an outstanding performance by the Vols, just the way they distributed the ball throughout the game. Fantastic offense, and if they can continue this, it should be really interesting to see how the season ends up with reserves playing the way they did.
I agree, and the rest of the slate for the Vols is not really one that you can tread lightly with. That's just how it is in the SEC. They still have South Carolina that they have to play this week. They also have Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss. Granted, these teams, they look like it could be doable to beat. South Carolina's kind of a question mark there because, it is South Carolina.
Right.
But, just looking over at the SEC standings really quick because we are getting to that point where it's going to be SEC tournament time. That's always a really fun time of year, like I talked about last week. It's going to be happening in Nashville. But here's just where the Vols are ranking right now. They're towards the bottom of the pack. I want to say they're around 10th. They're at 10th in the SEC. So we have Kentucky at the top, South Carolina, and Texas A&M, and LSU all tied up right behind Kentucky. Florida, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, and then you have Tennessee. So, looking at the teams that you have ahead, Ole Miss, they're up there. Arkansas, right behind Tennessee. They're right now, the Razorbacks and the Vols are tied right now in the standings. So that's really interesting to look at. In Arkansas, that's a team that, almost anything can happen against Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's tough to tell what's going to happen with that. Tennessee lost to Arkansas. The last time they went up against each other, 85-67. But, just looking at the last 4 games that the Vols have on their schedule, it's not really – these are, like I said, these are 4 teams that you can't really tread lightly on. anything's going to be possible there. But looking, like I said, they're going to be playing South Carolina this Wednesday as they travel to Columbia to take on the Gamecocks, and that game will be at 9 p.m. on SEC Network this Wednesday. And the last meeting between these two teams was in Knoxville on January 23rd. The Vols won that game 78-69, and that was a really, really fun game to watch if you were a Vols fan.
Oh, it absolutely was. But I think a player to watch in this one for South Carolina is, again, Michael Carrera.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, he's a force of nature. That's the only way to really describe him.
Absolutely.
He's impressive. But in that game, that was whenever Punter put up 36 points. That was a career high for him. But looking back at that box score from that game, I just want to look at Carrera really quick. He had 22 points, 8 rebounds, but no assists. And that's kind of interesting to me. I feel like if he's going to change anything on his stat line in this upcoming game, we could be seeing more assists from him. I know if you're a South Carolina fan, that's what you're really going to want to be seeing. But he's such a strong player. And in that same game, he was 8 of 14 from field goal range. So, I mean, South Carolina, they're a team that can shoot whenever they need to. So it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens. But like I said, Tennessee did get the win last time. And with this happening in Columbia this time around, South Carolina is going to be looking for retribution.
Yeah, I feel like what we're looking at here may very well be another instance like we saw in the Kentucky game. The Vols got the upset at home, but on the road, we've seen all season that they are weaker. And I think that without Punter, that it might just show.
I agree. It's going to be really tough to play against this South Carolina team with Punter out. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no way around it. Yeah. It looked like Tennessee, going into it, whenever everybody saw Punter was down, the first thought was, oh no, this is not going to work out well for Tennessee at all. Yeah. But I mean, you had Armani Moore stepping up. Yeah. You had Robert Hubbs once again stepping up. But, I mean, he's always kind of been the second fiddle kind of to Punter, you know. So who knows what's going to happen. But it should be a very interesting matchup. And like I said, that will be this Wednesday at 9 p.m. on SEC Network if you can't make the trip down to Columbia, South Carolina for that game. So also talking about some other Tennessee basketball news, we're going to talk about a VFL that everybody knows and loves, especially here on Rocky Top, Jarnell Stokes. He was traded to New Orleans from Miami on Thursday for a future second-round draft pick, but the next day he was just released by the Pelicans, which is heartbreaking because, I mean, granted, Jarnell's played about, I want to say 26 games in his career in the NBA, so it's tough to see that happening, but you can't help but wonder if this is the end of his career.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, people highlight the fact that, you know, he played with several very good NBA teams, but at the same time, during those stints, he bounced around the D-League a lot.
That's very true. Very much so. And he's the kind of player that whenever he was here on Rocky Top, people look at him and say, okay, that's an NBA caliber player. Yeah. But now it's just, he's kind of just dropping off the radar.
I mean, looking from a fan's perspective, when he was first drafted by the Grizzlies, I was thinking, okay, if this can last a long time, I think it'll be a great fit. I mean, Stokes is from Memphis. I thought it would just work out really well. And then we see what happened, as is the case with many players in Tennessee basketball.
But that's just how it is in sports. You can't always have the fairy tale where you really go back and play for your hometown team. I mean, you look at like Neil Walker. Yeah. He was a big Pittsburgh Pirates fan all his life. His dad played for the Pirates for the longest time. Neil did, and he just got traded to the Mets. So you can't always get that storybook that you really want whenever you can play for your team that you grew up rooting for.
Yeah, it's not difficult to want that, but it doesn't usually work out.
No, it doesn't. If it does work out, then you're lucky. But, I mean, you hope for the best with Jarnell Stokes. He's a great player, a great guy. You just want to see this work out for him so that you can have more Vols still playing in the NBA. Yeah. But we wish the best to Jarnell, and hopefully something can come about. Right now there's no news, no teams that are looking to pick him up anytime soon since the trade deadline is already passed. But who knows what's going to happen. But like I said, it's tough to just sit back and see him not in the NBA, knowing he was such a strong player. But maybe some team will give him another look sometime soon. But let's go ahead and shift over to Lady Vols basketball really quick. Since the show last Monday, the Lady Vols went 1-2, dropping a close one at home against South Carolina, number 3 ranked South Carolina, mind you. Tennessee looked really strong going into that game as well, but South Carolina just took control, winning that game 62-56. Lady Vols went on to beat Ole Miss at home on Thursday. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then they went on to lose against LSU on the road Sunday, 57-56. And that is not a tough game. That's not a tough pill to swallow.
No,
that's really hard to look at that score and know the Lady Vols were so close to getting that. But let's go ahead and look back at the Ole Miss game really quick. Like I said, the Lady Vols won that 57-51. And this is actually the 28th straight win that the Lady Vols have over Ole Miss, which is really interesting. That's quite the streak to hold in women's basketball. But Tennessee had to rally after blowing a 9-point fourth quarter lead. That kind of seems to be the storyline with Tennessee basketball this year. It's just things can be going so well, and then just everything changes in the blink of an eye. But the surprising force in this rally, at the very end of the game, was from Courtney Dunbar. This is a player that you don't see making that big of noise for the Lady Vols. She's usually on the bench. But she came off the bench with 3 minutes left to play and made two key baskets. I want to say she had a layup and then a three-pointer like 30 seconds later, which is really good for her. But I mean, you look at Tennessee, and she even said it in the post-game press conference and said, whenever you can come into clutch situations like that, this is whenever everything that you learn and do during practice really comes into play. So it just makes you wonder if Tennessee's having all these close games where they could potentially just pick up momentum and keep that until the end and make a comeback if needed. Why hasn't it happened?
I mean, I talked about it before the show.
Mm-hmm.
You can cite it for all the teams' woes if you want to, from first quarter to the final whistle.
Right.
But team chemistry is an absolute must in order to succeed as a basketball team, and they don't have it. I mean, Dunbar, even looking at her, she played well during those final couple of minutes, but at the same time, you look at it, she pulled a rabbit out of the hat to get that done.
Yeah, that's true. I would love to see more from the bench, especially Dunbar, because she's the kind of player, she has so much enthusiasm and she gets so into the game and everything, but you really want to see that come to life on the court.
Yeah.
So, but if we're going to talk about coming to life on the court, let's talk about Bashara Graves really quick. She was the leading player for the Lady Vols. She had 15 points and 12 rebounds, but you're used to seeing those numbers. But what's surprising is Diamond Shields. She was not as strong in this game as games past, and you expect Diamond Shields to come out basically every game and be a leading force. But in this game against LSU, in the game against Ole Miss, like I said, she was just not as hot, and that's just really surprising for this Lady Vols team. I'm trying to go back to find her complete scores because I was completely blown away by Bashara Graves. Like I said, 15 points and 12 rebounds for her. That's very impressive, and you want to see her doing that consistently. But in this game, Diamond Shields, 0 points, nothing. 0 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. She was 0 for 4 from field goal range with 24 minutes of play.
Yeah, I think that DeShields, earlier in the season, many people saw her go into a slump that lasted, goodness knows how long, and it was rough to see.
It was.
But in the Arkansas game, she really came out, posted a strong showing. They said in the press conference after the game that she had had a conversation with her dad and just came out, played a slower style, played her game, and got it done. And, many people expected that, the slump is over, she's back to her normal self, let's see what happens. But hopefully she's not falling back into that, because if she does, it's going to be very rough for the Lady Vols going into the SEC tournament and to see if they can get an NCAA. Well, they can get an NCAA tournament bid at this point, but not necessarily or not anywhere close to the kind of bid that Lady Vols fans expect.
Exactly. You don't see them being one of the top seeds. They're probably looking at it right now, and especially with them being ninth in the SEC, it's almost scary to say, but we'll probably see them getting around a 9 or a 10 seed as of right now. That all depends on what happens in the SEC tournament, of course, but right now you're ninth in the SEC. You're behind teams like South Carolina, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Missouri, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida, and Auburn. It's going to be tough.
I really can't. I just can't stand to see this because, with a Lady Vols team that you expect to be consistent every year, and I realize that I'm harping on this more than any other person probably has, but with a team that you expect to be consistent every year, it's just not fun to watch. I mean, you with a Lady Vols team that's playing the way that they're playing, they're going to have to hit their stride, hit their peak at the perfect moment in order to last going into the SEC tournament and the NCAAs.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, too, news came out today with the new standings for the NCAA rankings. This is the first time since February of 1985 that the Lady Vols are not in the top 25. They are out of it. And looking at the games that they have left, they only have 2 games left, Alabama and Georgia. They go to Alabama this Thursday, and then they're going to wrap up the regular season against Georgia at home on Sunday. So right now, just looking at it, is it possible for the Lady Vols to win out these final 2 games?
I think so. If they play together, if they learn how to do that very, very quickly.
That's true. And I think one bright thing to look at is the Lady Vols have taken on Alabama before. They beat Alabama in their last meeting 70-42, but they have not played against this Georgia team yet. And that's terrifying because, like I said, Georgia is above them in the rankings. Georgia is standing at 8-6 in the conference. So it's going to be tough for the Lady Vols, and it's very tough to see them struggling like they are. They're 16-11 right now on this season. 9th in the SEC, like I already said numerous times, but whenever you have a 31-year run in the AP poll and that just comes to an end, it's a little terrifying, especially this late in the season.
Oh, absolutely.
So basketball season's slowly coming to an end, but we're also getting to the very exciting part with March Madness coming up just next month. And like I said last week, SEC tournament stuff will be coming up very, very soon. For the men's side, the SEC tournament will be taking place March 9th through 13th in Nashville. And then for the women's, they'll be heading to Jacksonville March 2nd through the 6th. So we'll see where Tennessee's going to match up there, who they're going to play with, and right now, if they're going to get in, especially with the men's. I mean, the men's, they'll most likely make it in. Women, I think all the teams make it in the SEC tournament, but it's just going to be interesting with all of the NCAA tournament, with March Madness getting into full swing, where they're going to be put. Who knows what's going to happen at this point?
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and talk about baseball because it is officially back here on Rocky Top. The Tennessee Volunteers traveled to Chattanooga to take on Memphis, and they ended up winning the series 2-1. They won Friday 8-4, lost Saturday in a tough one. They tried to rally back late in the bottom of the 9th, but they ended up losing 13-8. But then they turned around and won the rubber match on Sunday 5-2. So this is not a bad start for the Vols. I mean, 2-1, that's a respectable start. Yeah. But what stands out the most to you from this weekend with this series?
I feel like pitching, honestly.
Absolutely.
I mean, Kyle Serrano started the series off, played pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I think Serrano I look at how he started. He was the starter for Saturday, and it was tough. I mean, that game was going to be tough. Saturday matches tend to be tough for the Vols. That's something that I've come to find out in the past few years. But the 2 guys that I'm really looking at are the starters that Tennessee had Friday and Sunday, because I think that these 2 guys, I mean, Zach Warren, of course, he's coming off of last season. He had some pretty good games, and Andy Cox, I mean, he's incredible. He's a senior. He's 11-6 right now. But I'll go ahead and go into their stats a little bit. Andy Cox on Friday, he ended up pitching 4 innings, allowing 1 run on 3 hits with 4 strikeouts. That's a pretty good showing. I'll give him that. Like I said, he's 11-6 on the season now, or on his career, excuse me. But Zach Warren, he started on Sunday for the Vols, and he picked up a W as well. He also pitched 4 innings, but he had 1 run on 2 hits with 3 strikeouts, and he's still undefeated on his career. He's 3-0. You know, that's still pretty small way to start. 3-0. It seems like nothing, but for him to be pitching on a Sunday against Memphis on the day after you lose, pretty much, I mean, you try to get the rally. 13-8 is the final there, but Tennessee needed to pick up that win if they wanted to have a strong start. So 2-1, not a bad start. But I just keep looking at Andy Cox and Zach Warren. I'm thinking, okay, if we have these 2 guys in the rotation, who knows what could happen with this bullpen? I mean, we're going to see strength, of course. That's going to happen. This is just the first series. You can't really give away everything with the team this early on because they still have to go to the Grand Canyon Classic and play teams like Grand Canyon, St. Mary's, Central Michigan, and Cincinnati, and then they'll have another classic before starting SEC play very soon. But I mean, 2-1, that's a respectable showing, I would say.
I think so.
Definitely this early on. But like I said, they're going to be going to the Grand Canyon Classic this weekend in Phoenix, Arizona, and they will be coming back on March 2nd to start their home season. They're going to be playing Cincinnati here in Knoxville at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, March 2nd. So that should prove to be a really good game. But like I mentioned in the last show, SEC play won't start until March 18th, and that's going to be at home against Ole Miss. So once SEC baseball starts, that's pretty much that's a really fun time. SEC baseball is a lot of fun. Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where the SEC ranks. I mean, this is still way ahead. This is jumping way ahead. But where they'll rank getting into Omaha, like Omaha play into the College World Series, it's always nice to see SEC schools in there, no matter who they are. But I know a lot of people around here are hoping that Tennessee can jump in there. But looking over at Tennessee softball, season is still just going on for them. They finished up their trip to the Michelle Smith Pediatric Cancer Invitational in Clearwater, Florida this weekend. And they ended up going 4-1 this weekend in their games. They had strong showings apart from a shutout loss to James Madison to start their time at the Invitational. They lost to James Madison on Friday the 19th, 9-0 in 5 innings. But then they turned around and got a win that same day against Oklahoma State, 14-4 in just 5 innings. But I want to break down these games and the scores that they had. They played Fordham on Saturday, and they beat Fordham 10-2 in 6 innings. They played University of Southern Florida right after that and got a win 6-4 in just the 7 innings like usual. But then they played DePaul on Sunday, and they got a win 16-4 in 5 innings. So you have 4 games that just ended early from run rules and whatnot. One of those was a loss. This is something that you're used to seeing with the Lady Vols, to get a game pretty much won early on in the game, where it's like 4 or 5, mainly 5 to 6 innings. So I mean that's a really good showing for Tennessee softball, I should say. But for these matchups that they had at the Invitational, what stands out to you, if anything?
I feel like just what you said, the strength that they have jumping out to such an early lead. Mm-hmm. But it'll be really interesting to see what James Madison does for the rest of the year. They, as the only team to beat Tennessee, I mean, honestly, going into that game, I predicted that Tennessee would win. I thought they would just sweep, but I mean, obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But as an underdog, it'll be really interesting to see where the opponent goes from here.
I think one thing that's it's very important to note right now, they've played 2 ranked teams, Tennessee softball has, and they've lost to both of those. They played Arizona State in the Kajikawi Classic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I had a tough time with it last week, but I think that's how it's pronounced. They lost to Arizona State, who was ranked number 22, number 20, somewhere around there. They lost to them 5-4 in 8 innings. And then they go into this into the Invitational in Clearwater, Florida, and they lose to James Madison, who's ranked 19-20, right around that area, 9-0. So right now, ranked play looks to be pretty tough for this Vols softball team. So it just kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen a little later on. I mean, whenever they get into SEC play, usually that's whenever you'll see them really kind of hitting their stride, seeing where they need to go, how to win games. And like I said, with baseball as well, it's still early on for both of these teams. But it's just, it's really interesting to look and see that they've played 2 ranked teams so far and lost to both of them. One was a close game, but James Madison just shutting them out. But I want to say that the Dukes started their ace that day. So, I mean, their ace picked up the win. If you're going to be playing against an ace this early on in the season, I mean, you're not going to really have your bats ready. You're still trying to get the fundamentals down and everything. So I think that's really interesting. But the win against DePaul, that's one thing I keep looking at for Tennessee softball. It was 16-4 in 5 innings. Tennessee hit a season-high 3 home runs in that win. I mean, yes, the season is still very early. It's still just an early start. But to have 3 home runs in that game, that was very impressive against this DePaul team. But looking ahead for Tennessee softball, like I said, they will be taking on Dayton. I don't think I've mentioned that yet, but they will be taking on Dayton coming up on Thursday at 3 p.m. for their home opener. And then they will be traveling down to Tuscaloosa for the Easton Bama Bash, and they will be taking on Marshall, Arizona, Marshall again, and then Alabama on the 28th. then they will come back home and start the Tennessee Invitational at the beginning of March. But we'll talk about that more next week. But so far, like I said, with Tennessee softball, they are 8-3 on the season. That's a pretty good showing. So right now we have a full slate of sports going on Rocky Top, and it's nice to have that back. It just kind of makes you still miss football, though.
I mean, it brings a little nostalgia as far as football is concerned.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you count down to spring practice. You go through the summer, look at recruits.
Absolutely.
And obviously, with all of the media surrounding recent allegations concerning Tennessee, it's very interesting going into the spring, going into the summer to see how that pans out. Butch Jones gave an interview the other night at, I believe, the LSU game, and said that that Tennessee football defines its own culture, that they don't let others do that for them. And with two, very not small, because obviously it made major headlines, but two instances in which people made bad decisions, that does not define a program.
Right, and I mean, it's tough to have that coming up in the off season. It's tough at any time of year, especially with what was said and the headlines that have come out. But it's just, it's kind of sad that it also takes away from the spring sports that are happening right now. There's still just such a focus on the football team and things that are happening there. And I mean, especially with basketball right now and the men Vols, they're hitting a stride. I mean, they're 12-2 at home, so it's just like people are looking for like the positive energy on Rocky Top. But whenever news breaks, it's tough to have that happen.
Yeah, back when Bruce Pearl was on Rocky Top as basketball coach, many people said that as Tennessee football started going down, Tennessee was becoming a basketball school. But now, I mean, we see with the Outback Bowl win and, quite honestly, the decline of what was once Tennessee's pinnacle, Lady Vols basketball.
Yeah.
That it's returning to football, I guess. And that excites many people, but it is unfortunate in a way that it detracts from many of the other sports.
Yeah, and especially at this time of year too, because I mean, you're getting into tournament play.
Right.
Just a lot of things are coming up, and with baseball and softball really getting into full swing and getting started there, it's just, I mean, it's great to have so many things happening on Rocky Top. It's just like when news breaks, that's always interesting.
Yeah, it just brings down the hype.
It does. It definitely does. But we'll see if any more hype can come about, especially as Lady Vols finish up their season and men Vols do the same. But also as Tennessee baseball and Tennessee softball really start getting into really like a lot of play. I mean, right now it's just invitationals and whatnot, but whenever they really start getting into conference play and just start having like serious series home and away, it should be really interesting. But that's all that we have for the Triple Play this week. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to join us next week as we really start to delve into SEC tournament talk. We'll even do a little bit of a preview, probably with some NCAA tournament talk as well, just to see who the first four ins, who the first four outs are. And then we will talk more about Tennessee baseball and softball. So thank you once again for joining us this week, and we will see you next week on the Triple Play.